Tell us a little bit about how your relationship with Mohamedou developed. Like, what are some of the first conversations you remember, or the first time you started wondering if maybe what you had
But
been told wasn't true?
in the beginning, I mean, like we were told to like, treat him humanely, it was like, so it was like an act. And surprisingly, it was easy. Like it's weird to think now, like think back, like, cause like back, like this guy was supposedly, you know, guilty of, some horrible acts. And we're told to like, just hang out with him, play Monopoly with him, just, shoot the shit with him, I guess you say, and but surprisingly, it was really easy. And like, and it was, I think all the guards, kind of just fell into, just kind of started enjoying his presence and being around him, and like aha moments, like just we'd have a lot of talks, like just about, the world, like, politics and like, former conflicts, the only rule is that like we couldn't speak of anything like that was currently happening. Like that was off topic, but we talked a lot about the history, and like I heard, the views of, what the outside world, sees, like, Vietnam and like Iran, and like when, I grew up thinking, we're Americans, we're exceptional, and like we're the only free country in the world, and like so I'd hear these things, and he didn't try to like, talk me into believing these things. You just tell our opinion, each opinion, and I started doing my own research, and I kind of felt like I was lied to my whole life, So
And
that was
so you were doing that research while you were still a guard, like
yeah,
home and
definitely.
Google things that you'd talked about with Mohamedou.
Yeah. And, I mean, it just spiraled, and then we even brought in that Michael Moore movie with like we weren't supposed to bring movies in unless they were like cleared by the interrogators, but we just whatever movie we want, we just bring it in and watch it with them and watch that. I can't remember what movie it was that Michael Moore did, and it was all about the Iraq War and like how effed up it was, and that sparked conversations and like just
Fahrenheit 9/11. Dan Handelman put in the chat. Thanks, Dan.
yes, thank you, and but yeah, it was just like starting to realize, and everything's for money, you know. I don't know of any moral war you've ever been into, but
So Mohamedou is pretty well educated and pretty knowledgeable about history and current affairs.
definitely. No, for sure. Like he's a very, like, I mean, I think he speaks like 5 languages now, and
Oh
like
yeah.
just yeah, he picks stuff up a lot. It wasn't only just him either, and just other guards, like because I worked with guards from other areas of the U.S. So it was like there's always a mix of people telling their side, like it was definitely a learning experience. And
Are
like
you
when I hear something, like I have to like go deeper because I have ADD, like I hear something, I'm like I gotta know the whole story.
sure? Tell us a little bit about Mohamedou, what kind of person he is. You said, other guards too were saying that they started to enjoy his company. So what is it about him that was likable to you? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about who he is as a person.
He was a funny guy, and he was like easy to talk to, and he was like surprisingly like just like we were, and that you spend 12 hours a day with somebody, like you really get to know them, and like you know he had my type of humor, you know.
So mostly just funny, easygoing.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to like, like why did I choose that person to be my friend? It's like a kind of a funny thought, but we just clicked,
You were saying earlier that when Mohamedou was being interrogated, at some point he just decided to say whatever it was they wanted him to say to stop the torture. Do you know if that is what ended up like, do you know if that happened to him too, where other detainees were dropping his name and that's part of why he ended up being such a high value detainee? Or was it just that one call, as far as you know, from Osama bin Laden's?
It was, I think he knew a lot. I mean, like if you look at the people he knew and like get associated with in the past, like he knew a lot of people. You know, he was a member of Al Qaeda in 91, before the US, but he took off, he left before, before the US, or bin Laden decided to go after the US, and his cousin was still a member of Al Qaeda. He was still like, even, right after 9/11, his cousin was, in, Tora Bora with, bin Laden, from what I understand. And so, like, all those little things add up,
Yeah. Have you ever tried to download his Department of Defense documents from the DoD website? Have you like looked at anything that the U.S. government has put together about him?
Probably everything. Yeah, I spend a lot of time like digging through information.
Yeah. Did you ever have a moment where you wondered, like, what if he's fooling me and he's actually this bad guy?
No, because he never told me, "Hey, I'm innocent."
Right.
He did that after I left. Like that was like I came to that conclusion myself. And the main one is intuition, or I don't know. I started doubting the U.S. also just after the stuff I started learning, but also like he would get really down and depressed. And I remember I'd always say like, "Hey," because that's one thing they told us, like, he's being treated this way. He's really good now because he's saving thousands of lives. And like he would get really, really down. And I would try to bring him back. I was like, "Hey, think about it now. Like you're saving thousands of lives now." And he would just look at me and like I could just read it, like read it. Like it was like no, that's bullshit, you know. And
Because
then like
yeah, he
he
knew that
went
he was
through,
lying.
yeah, and then like he went through his like they had this like sort of trial type thing to like his enemy combatant status tribunal, and he got this paper, and it listed all of the like the reasons why he is considered an enemy combatant. And like reading this list, it was all like he was trained on an AK-47 in Afghanistan at this such and such camp that was ran by Al Qaeda, but this was 92, and like everything on that list was like from a time that the U.S. was funding them.
Right.
They even said like there was a CIA officer at one point there helping train. Like it was like how do you hold somebody for, we were supporting them and funding them at that moment.
So since leaving Guantanamo, you've gotten involved in activism. Obviously, you're here with us talking today, and I know you've done a lot of other things. Can you talk a little bit about some of your other activism? What are some things that you've done, and who are some people that you're working with in your activism?
You mainly. I mean, a lot of it's been with you, but for the longest time, most of the stuff I've done is just like, just interview after interview after interview with Mohamedou, because like, just because if that helps him, then I'm down. Like, I didn't do a lot of like, protesting out in the street or anything like that. And
But you're also networked with a lot of other former detainees and also some former guards as well, right?
yeah.
What are the former detainees doing around Guantanamo?
Just speaking out as much as possible. That's like, that's all most of them can do because they're stuck. Most of them, I think, other than Mohamedou, like Mohamedou, he's in the Netherlands right now, and
Right.
but
So tell us.
everybody,
He wasn't allowed to leave Mauritania for a long time, right? So what changed with that?
I think I honestly I have no clue, because the U.S. was what it was like. The only reason he couldn't leave was because of the U.S.
Right.
But I think it's probably the pressure. His movie is released, his book comes out, he's getting his really big. And, when the people start caring and the government sees that and they're like, okay, we got to keep the people happy, and that's also probably the reason, he was finally released, is because he wrote that book, and it was.
Yeah. So tell us about that book. How did he manage to write a book while he was in the detention facility?
Yeah. So I think it was one of his lawyer just said, hey, start writing your story, or maybe it was his interrogator, it's like, just give him something to do, and he just started writing and writing and writing and writing, and and I think it was like right after I left is when he started writing that book.
And what did he have a laptop, or how was he doing the actual writing?
It was by hand.
It
was by hand, but he did have a laptop that, like, because the interrogators would bring in like discs of like videos of like these Al Qaeda meetings and stuff, but like he did all the writing by hand, from what I understand.
And then he would be able to send it to his lawyer, and his
lawyer
held it.
I think it was held in some, like, in DC somewhere, in like a secure location where, like pretty much any evidence, anything the detainees had that the lawyers needed to see would be locked away in this like secure room. So they'd have to go there to look at any of the information because it was considered like top secret, But they fought for it though, and eventually the U.S. released it.
What's that book called, in case somebody wants to find it?
Guantanamo Diary.
Guantanamo Diary.
Okay. Yeah.
And how is Mohamedou doing now, or how has he been doing in general since his release? And what are some of the challenges that he's faced and that you think maybe other detainees also face after release?
I think just PTSD. Like there's a lot of I mean, after going through what he went through, like there's a lot of therapy you need to go through, and like possibly medicine, and luckily he has friends that do help him with that, and like that he stays in touch with. So like, but a lot of the detainees, I don't know if I say most, but like there's a lot that are not getting that help, that treatment. There's some detainees that are like living on the street, in a country that you don't speak the language. So
yeah, can you give an example? Are you connected with any detainees in that situation?
I'm not, because I just like Mansour Al-Dafi. Yeah, like I talk to him a lot, and he's the one, he brings it up a lot because like it needs to be fixed, and that's what he's really striving for right now. And yeah, there's quite a few of them that are just, they need the help, but
that they've been like to Uruguay or Serbia or some country.
Yeah.
They don't speak the language. They don't understand the culture. They're supposed to start all over. Yeah. Also, a lot of restrictions placed on their movement. Also,
exactly.
Associated with having been at Guantanamo.
Yeah, and it's the U.S. that should be supported. Which should be supporting them, and should be giving them a stipend, and getting them off their feet. But it's the host country doing it. And a lot of the countries that try, they give them a job and stuff. But like many more than what they're getting, for sure. A lot more. And there's some countries that are, the detainees release and then they throw them in prison, and they disappear. And again,
it's the U.S. imprisoned Mohamedou for 14 years without charge, along with many others, including children that the U.S. imprisoned in Guantanamo. What is the significance of Guantanamo prison for the U.S.? What would change if American people really knew what happens there and in other U.S. occupied places?
I would hope, I hope that people would care at that point, but people, Americans, we have amnesia, especially because of the media. But like, if people truly knew, I think they get very upset, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and they would do what they had to do to make it change. That's the only way that things change, calling your senators and stuff like that is like, it can help, but like, does it really? In the long run, if you truly want to make a huge difference, you have to make noise.
What are some of the long-term effects in your life from your experience at Guantanamo, and from your experiences since leaving Guantanamo and being involved in this work? How has it changed you as a person?
Like that dream of being in law enforcement, like I got it back from Guantanamo, and I got hired on at Marion County Sheriff's Office as a deputy in the jail because I was gonna work my way into, you know, being out on the road, and then hopefully, some federal agency. And I made it 2 weeks, and I just couldn't. I don't want that. Couldn't have that control over other people. It just because I knew in my heart like mom was innocent, and it just creeped me out.
So
Just
it
made me angry.
changed what you wanted to do with your career.
Yeah, so I ended up, getting into construction, and which I'm finally out of, and I am now going to school, full time.
What are you going to school for?
I signed up, going for paralegal associate's degree, and I'm not sure. I would love to, work for an NGO or even if I'm paralegal, maybe anti, death penalty firm, or wherever I can help, wherever I can make the biggest change.
Do you think it's appropriate that the U.S. sends the National Guard outside the borders of the U.S., including foreign war zones and Guantanamo, which is technically Cuba's land?
I think it's wrong that the U.S. government sends our military anywhere at all. Unless there's a true moral, like if they're helping in a natural disaster or something, definitely go where they're unarmed. But yeah.
When you first met Mohamedou, he was really ready to meet you. You said he was in a positive frame of mind. You had instant rapport with him. This is after a man had spent years in torture. I think he has to be a person of very strong character in order to be able to put that behind him and meet you on even ground without being bitter. Can you comment on that?
Honestly, he smiled, and I think he was trying. He was probably terrified. Like the guards before. They took part in softening him up for the interrogators. And I think he's just like us. We put on that kind of act in the beginning. And I think he put on an act also. But the longer we were, it. I think on both sides, started becoming honest, like a real, I try not to say friendship because there's an imbalance. How can we be truly friends when I've got all the power over him? I lock the key, I lock him up, and he has no say, But I feel there is a friendship there, but I don't know, it's kind of a gray area, but yeah, I think for him, even 2 months into or a month after I got there to start warming up, that shows a lot, after what he was even when
did your relationship evolve after he was released, and you've maintained a friendship with him to this day?
Yeah, and I think when I flew over there to meet him after he was released, and that was when we were officially friends. It was that we were on equal grounds. Yeah. That's the only way it's possible to have a friendship, I think.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like visiting him in Mauritania?
It was awesome. It was unreal. I didn't think because my last day in Cuba, I remember talking to one of the other guards, we didn't know if he would ever be released. I didn't, honestly, we thought, because we heard different stories, his interrogators would tell him that he might go in witness protection program, or they're going to send him to, Australia. They told him so many different things. We'd only hear rumors, but I felt like somebody gets tortured, they're going to release him. That person's going to start talking, So I just automatically assumed that, you'd never hear from him ever again, I would Google his name daily, afterwards. And
did you hear about his release just on the news then?
No, I heard it was Larry Sims, who's the editor of the book that I got to know. You know, Larry Sims gave me a call and said, "Hey, Mohamedou's out." That was pretty cool. Definitely awesome to hear.
How were you able to get in touch with Mohamedou after he got out?
It was the following day, or the next day, or 2 days later. It was actually his Mohamedou's brother, who I spoke to a few times. He called me and he was like, Mohamedou, he really wants to speak to you, but he's at the grocery store right now.
Mm-hmm.
But then we'll wait. You can talk to him when he gets back, So I talked to his brother Gotti for like 15-20 minutes. And then then Mohamedou got home, and it was we just started talking about how it was back in the day, and talking about what happened to him afterwards, after we left, and it was great. It was cool, really cool catching up.
Do you find are there any U.S. senators or representatives who are receptive to your concerns about Guantanamo or its closure?
I mean, for ones I've talked to, like I've talked Ilhan Omar, and a couple offices out of Chicago. I think Jan Schwarkowski and Shui Garcia, like their office, and then they made they're 100%. I think they've been on board for years, but they're the only ones I've talked to. I think any Republican is going to be against closing it, just
Politically.
They'll be canceled, just because of this whole Trump thing, that happened. Like that's the stance the Republicans are taking, and we don't have any, there's no Republicans that are going to do that, and most military congressmen were, from what I understand.
Agreed that the average Republican lawmaker would never support the closure of Guantanamo, but why didn't Obama and why won't Biden? These are great questions. What will it take for a Democrat to really take a strong position on this, in Steve's opinion?
It's going to take the public. It's going to take the public, Rick causing a scene. Honestly.
What do you think is the resistance? If theoretically Democrats support Biden or Obama in closing it, so why don't they? What is the issue?
I think they're stuck with like KSN, like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and like the other detainees. Katani's still there. These people have been tortured brutally, and they have to try them, right? They're into the U.S. Like, how are they going to try them? I mean, in the U.S., I mean, if people got somebody gets tortured, and they would take the case out,
Well, so how about the ones that are cleared for release then? Obama managed to move quite a number out during his time, but a lot of them he didn't. And then now, Biden's sitting on a number of detainees cleared for release that aren't being released. So what do you think is the holdup, or what pressures might they be facing to not do it?
I think there's a lot of just choosing where to send them, and finding a country to that'll accept them is one thing, because like we were talking before, they don't want to send them like they have in the past to somewhere they'll be lost, or get arrested again, so.
I was told once that Republicans keep putting provisions in the military budget bills that prohibit presidents from using their tools to close Guantanamo. I don't know much about that. Steve, do you feel like you can comment at all on the NDAA? If not, I can try briefly. So this is true. There's the military budget is like a must-pass legislation every year, and it comes through in something called the National Defense Authorization Act. And for some reason, so Republicans have managed to put provisions in there each year preventing the executive branch from spending money to close Guantanamo, and also preventing also putting in place a ban on the domestic transfer of detainees to U.S. soil, even for totally necessary medical reasons. And so Amnesty International has been very active at a national level, trying to every single year doing advocacy around the NDAA to try to get those provisions removed, and to add provisions in that would help make sure that they have adequate health care at the facility, make sure that they, that conditions are improved and things like that. So the National Defense Authorization Act, the military budget every year is a battleground on Guantanamo. You are correct about that.
They might be wanting to use it again in the future. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
And it did just pass, and it did not go our way. So this thing where Biden is prohibited from using funds to close the facility did pass again in the current NDA. A question: where is Mohamedou from, and where did you meet with him?
Mauritania.
Oh,
And
Where is Mauritania?
it is in Western Africa, and I had never heard of Mauritania until 5 minutes before I met Mohamedou Ould Salahi. Yeah.
Mauritania is a Muslim majority African country. Yes.
Okay.
I think on paper it's 100% Muslim. Yeah, it's like.
I wanted to ask you, maybe as a final question, having been through what you've been through and having heard so much about what Mohamedou and other detainees went through and knowing a lot about U.S. foreign policy, what gives you hope for the future?
That's a really tough one. I think my hope is that, people will start realizing this, and like there has been a lot of talk lately about the CIA, the torture that's happened there and detainees, his stories gotten out and documentaries coming out. And like, I think my hope is that like more doors are open and more information gets out, and the population truly hears what happened down there. Cause there's a lot that has not been said, like you never hear about the DIA who were pretty much ran the torture program in Guantanamo. All you hear about is the CIA. It's like it'll all come out soon, I think.